Hello, hi. Welcome to Wonder Slut. My name is Rebekah Crosby, and I am doing yet another podcast. I think this is my third one this week. I've recorded two and just felt like, you know what? That's not it. It's not it, Rebekah. There's something else. It felt too I don't know, too basic, maybe stuff that I'm just regurgitating over and over again. But I woke up this morning with this fire in my belly. And I wrote a post about this on Facebook. I woke up thinking, if Jesus were alive today, would he actually be accepted by normal society, by religious leaders and political powerhouses and businessmen and women and, people in politics, all the things? Would he be respected? Would he be welcomed? Would he be included in large conversations about the well-being of humanity? Because I believe that we've built a whole society based around the belief that we are God-fearing, in quotes, and Jesus-loving Christians. This whole temperature of the United States has this idea of who Jesus was, right? We've built this whole religion around who we believe he was, or what we believe he would do in modern day society and all the things. But when I look at the person of Christ and read the Bible and dig into what he actually valued and how he actually likely lived his life and how it would have translated into modern times, it doesn't look to me like he would be anybody that was welcome at tables of, in quotes, important people. The people in power, the ones making the decisions, the ones holding the key to the kingdom, right? Whatever that means to you. The ones running our churches, the ones running our political parties on both sides. I don't think this is a wider left issue. I think Jesus was nonpartisan. So I wanted to break this down and analyze who he was, how he spent his time, who he hung out with, what his moral compass was, what he valued, all the things. So I broke it down into a couple of categories so we could just really dissect who this person was that we claim to love and follow in Christianity. I mean, let me just be clear. I don't label myself as a Christian anymore, but I do love the Bible. I read it through a very lens than I once did. And I believe Jesus is my brother, not my savior. So let's just clarify that. But I'm talking about Christians who, claim he's their savior. They want to be like him. What would Jesus do? All the things, right? It makes them feel good to talk about the person of Christ, because he seems like this epic hero of morality and the standard of living and all the things, right? But I believe when we actually look at the person that he is, he doesn't resemble anything like we think a good, in air quotes, person is. So I think that Jesus likely was a man that did not hold an 8-to-5 job. So let's just look at it from that lens, okay? People in society that are artists, musicians, manual laborers that do gig work are largely viewed as irresponsible, right? Because they don't force themselves to get up and go to work every day. They don't take a lunch break. They don't have a 2-week vacation. They're not building towards retirement or an IRA. They don't have medical insurance. They don't have a lot of insurance. They likely live day to day, right? Paycheck to paycheck. This has been very looked down on in, you know, high society. I say that in air quotes. So if you were like a practical American, then the standard of behavior is that you have an 8 to 5 job that pays you all the things. You have health benefits, you have an IRA, all the things. This is a respectable way to move through the world, right? That's like a mark of you having arrived or being a contributing citizen. You pay your taxes, you largely look responsible. You're in this category of, the middle class America that keeps everything going, right? I think that if Jesus were translated into today's world, he would live paycheck to paycheck. I think he would probably be some sort of gig worker. So his time was his own. He didn't work for anybody else. He didn't show up at a certain time every day. In fact, that makes me laugh thinking that he's that kind of person. Like it just wasn't a thing. He wasn't building towards having a comfortable, stable life. That was not on his agenda at all. His agenda was to heal the sick, was to connect to the broken, was to preach freedom to people, was to wake them up to their own power and their direct connection to source. That was his mission. That's how he spent his life. Everything was oriented around that being the thing, which meant he came and went as he pleased. He went off by himself all the time. So this is another aspect of it. So we talked about how he would look in public. Would he be able to have a 9 to 5 job, 8 to 5 job, whatever? Probably not. So that's off the list. So this like value that we have in our American society as being a valued human being if you do this template, right? So he'd be a gig worker, let's just say, some sort of artist that his time was his own. How he would appear, I think, he would probably largely be somewhat unkempt, like he just slept outside. He'd maybe have 3 changes of clothes that he altered between. Everything he owned would probably fit in a backpack. He did basic maintenance of his appearance, but that wouldn't be the priority. He wouldn't give a shit whether you thought he was attractive or, athletic or anything. I think he probably took care of himself, but it was just like an overflow of the love that he felt for his own life and for being a part of this like mystical creation, right? So he didn't spend a lot of time on his appearance. I doubt highly that he would go to the gym and work out for 2 hours a day. I mean, maybe the labor that he did in taking care of his body would be like because he was hiking up to a spot that was secluded from the crowd, or, his movement, his exercise was just kind of built into his life. He would go on long walks because he was connecting with the divine, or, he would get muscles because he was helping his neighbor build a house or something. I don't know. It was all very practical, normal. I'm just connecting with people, and this is an overflow of what I do. He doesn't strike me as a man that spent a great amount of time on his appearance to be impressive to other people. He probably looked like Einstein a little bit, like his hair was just kind of unkempt, and he forgot to brush his teeth at the time because he was lost in thought, or I don't know. So his appearance would not be anything that, like, you'd be slightly embarrassed to invite him to a fancy dinner, right, with your highfalutin friends, because he would maybe stink. I mean, he probably didn't wear deodorant. So, I mean, did they wear deodorant in those times? Absolutely not. But we're translating it to today. So he would be like questionable, right, in his hygiene. And, people that are greatly invested in how they appear to other people do not keep company with people that have questionable hygiene and unkempt clothing. I'm sure everything he had was wrinkled because he just took it from his backpack and sniffed it, and it smelled good enough, so he put it on. So the appearance would be off-putting, okay? So you've got number one, the kind of job that he had, his career absolutely would not make sense to this modern structure that we find ourselves in. His appearance would not be conducive to that either. You would like look at him and be like, you are a hippie. I mean, where are your shoes? And maybe you need a haircut. And here's a toothbrush. Would you like to go brush your teeth? I mean, I think he probably did enough to keep up, to take care of himself. I don't think he was like irresponsible about hygiene, but I don't think it was a priority. And I'm translating all of this into my own life. Like, how do I spend my time, and how much of my money and time is invested in my looks and, all the things, right? So this is not a judgment for Christians necessarily. This is just like, let's look at this through the angle of curiosity. Like, do these things really go together? Okay. We're just let's just not be hypocrites. Okay. Fine. Moving on. Who he spent his time with and how he spent it. Ooh, I love this one because this is juicy. This is real juicy. Okay. So they called Jesus a drunkard and a sinner, or he who hangs out with sinners, quite a bit, right? What was the verse? Let's see. Okay, they called him a glutton and a drunkard, which meant he really enjoyed being around the table with people that were having conversations. My donkey is braying right now. You can't hear him, but it's so cute. It's so cute. So he's hanging out with people that are drinking and eating, okay? Doing the same, participating in the thing. So there was a rumor going around that Jesus is a drunk. So today that would translate into someone that spends their time in bars, someone that spends their time hanging out with normal people, with people who are not afraid to expose their humanity. They're not trying to pretend to be someone they're not. So recovery groups, community centers, the park, I don't know. What else? Outdoor bars and patios where there's live music. Like, he would be engaged with the public with people who were just being their damn self. So maybe sporting events. I don't know. He'd just be hanging out anytime, anywhere people go where they are actually themselves, authentically themselves. And that's why bars come to mind, because that is when all the truth is revealed in the bottle. You can tell what kind of person you are when you're drinking. And you can tell who, people are just not actively hiding who they are if they're drinking. They are doing it because they are tired of pretending and they want to just express themselves authentically. That's a very safe way socially to do that. So the idea that Jesus wouldn't be sitting in a bar is, questionable. Okay, so now we've got a guy who doesn't have an 8-to-5 job. He's a gig worker. He has questionable appearance and questionable hygiene, probably barefoot, walks around with crystals in his pockets and smells like, sage and sandalwood and patchouli because he's been like putting incense on himself because that's how we heal, is natural remedies. I don't know. He looks unkempt, probably. He needs a haircut. He probably has dirt under his fingernails. His clothing is not like super sharp or fancy. Okay. And now we're adding to that. He also hangs out with people that are inappropriate in society. Okay. I put that in air quotes. So people that like to drink, people that like to have a good time, people that are just being their damn selves. Maybe they are strippers. Maybe they are dancing on a stage like the Pink Pony Club. Yes, Jesus, I love that song. So my friends know that I love this song. And now one of my dear friends. Love him so much. He calls it PPC. Rebekah, I'm about to play PPC, and then everybody expects me to dance at the bar that I go to. So I do. I mean, it comes on, and I just can't help myself. I just have to get up and dance. So Jesus would be hanging out with the Pink Pony Club people, dancing on a stage, just being her damn self. He would be at the drag show with people that are dressing in drag and just having a good time. And he'd be hanging out with queers because they don't give a shit. Do you know how courageous it has to be in order for you to come out? He loved people that were just authentically themselves. They were his people. They were his people. I don't think that it mattered. I'm not talking about, I do think he probably had lots of great friends who, by all appearances, were together. You know, the really wealthy ones who were very educated. And, you know, I think he could hang in whatever society, but it took a certain person to be able to tolerate his disruption. He was a walking disruption because he was so authentically himself and called people out on their bullshit all the time. So his friends were just, they were fringy. They were fringy and messy and sticky, and they didn't fit in polite society. His tribe was fucking weird. It reminds me of this meme that I saw once. They said to find your tribe. And so here's my tribe. It's like Bigfoot and an alien and a unicorn and, I mean, all the things. Fairies. That was Jesus's tribe. He loved weirdos because he was a fucking weirdo. So he would not behave. Okay? You couldn't just bring him anywhere because he would be disruptive to everybody he's around. I don't think that he was like this polite guy who just sat back passively watching people be hypocrites left and right. I think he loved calling people out on their bullshit. Okay, so we've got his friends, his career. We already talked about that. Money. This is a really fun topic also. Whoa, this gets me. This gets all of us. So Jesus was all about calling people out on hoarding wealth and not being generous and making money your master, all the things. I don't think money itself is bad. I don't think that Jesus thought that it was bad. I think that he wanted us to reframe it as this is a resource. This is a tool that you've been given in order to expose the light of the Creator, which means that it is beautiful. You use it in a way that is for beauty and good for other people and yourself. It is a way of elevating those who need elevation. That it's not yours. You don't own money. You don't own anything, actually. He was all about the detachment, right? Be detached to whatever it is that you were using in life. This is just a resource. This is a resource to get you to whatever goal it is for you to increase the light in the world. Okay. For you to accept the expression of creation. But in our society, we value it so much, so very much. And we use it as a tool for separation. Like, I am better than you because I have more money than you do. Or I'm more important than you are because I make more than you do a year. Or I'm set for life because I have X, Y, and Z in savings and you don't. And so it's used as like this tool to divide us instead of a tool to bring us together. I think Jesus probably shared whatever he had with whoever he felt the need to share it with. I don't think that he just like was a bank. I don't think people took advantage of him. I think he had very strong boundaries around everything. I don't think that he gave himself an unlimited amount, a limitless amount. What am I trying to say? I don't think he allowed himself to be emptied by other people. I think he maintained a very centered, grounded place when it came to money and resources and time and energy. I think he loved himself first and foremost, and he knew that I can't help anybody if my own cup is empty. I think that shows up in a lot of the Bible where he just leaves to go meditate or something, be away from the crowd so he can like replenish his reserve, heal his nervous system, take care of his damn self so he could be whatever he was right in the moment. And so this idea that we're supposed to be responsible citizens with our wealth, I think it begs reexamination. What does it actually mean? If you're like being a steward of the money that you have been given, that you're being provided with, number one, maybe that was the thing, is to understand that this is just a temporary ownership, maybe temporary. You are just housing this amount of money temporarily. So what are you going to do with it? I think Jesus probably was just always had what he needed because he didn't operate in fear and scarcity. He operated with, I trust that the Lord will provide, and really did believe that in his bones and lived that out on the daily. So I think that largely meant that every day he had no idea where he was going to get his next meal. I don't think that he probably had a lot of savings. I don't think that would be a thing if he were translated into this modern society. I think he would probably just give away what he had and have just enough to last him the day. I don't imagine him being real concerned with paying his taxes or having health insurance or auto insurance. I think he probably just walked everywhere. I think he would probably walk everywhere today. I just think he was like a simple man. So now you've got this man who isn't the wealthiest person in the room. And if he is, he's using it to, I don't know, generate expansion for other people. So it's not like he has all the wealth. The wealth that he has is being shared in whatever way. So, because I don't think that money is bad. And also, I think the idea that we have around money is what gets us. So his money is real tricky, isn't it? He talked about not storing up your treasures, not serving money, trusting provision, giving freely, and loosening attachment to possession. But his psychological center, I think, would be in non-attachment. So I don't think he would be worried about asset protection or nest eggs or portfolio strategy or late life comfort. I think he would likely see how deeply Americans organize their lives around fear of insecurity. And I think he would call that out. So he's not encouraging irresponsibility. He's encouraging non-attachment. There's a huge difference. I don't think that it's because planning is bad. I don't think that's the shtick. I think Jesus was more about building his life around serving people, not about future financial insulation. So that's an interesting thing also. So now we've got this man who doesn't have an 8-to-5 job. He's a gig worker. He looks kind of unkempt, perhaps. He has radical ideas about, we haven't gotten there yet, how he spent his time. He was a barfly. He hung out with people that were radical and rebellious and disruptive, who were genuine and authentic and hungry for truth and ready to disrupt their own lives because they knew that what they were buying into was bullshit. And he floated around and he just had what he had. He lived life with an open hand. Did he go to church? Probably not. If he did, it was probably to, I don't know, give a talk that would be very disruptive, or because he befriended a pastor that asked him to come. And so he sits there and then afterwards causes a ruckus at the table when he talks about, well, I feel like maybe you're missing the point, to the pastor who just gave a whole sermon on morality and why we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. So I don't think that he would be a fan of churches. I don't think he would spend a lot of time in them. I think he would be repulsed by just how fake we are in churches and how little authenticity could be found in the pew. And also incredibly saddened because people are sitting in the pews begging God to change them because they hate themselves and they cannot be authentically who they are, because then they'll have to disrupt their lives and upset other people, and they're not ready to take that leap, and it's not moral. But I pledged to be married to this woman my whole life, but I don't like her and I'm miserable, and God, just help me love my wife or help me love my husband, whatever it is. So we're like all these people that are just stuffing their truth because they don't feel like their truth is worthy of acting on, because there is something wrong with them. They are ashamed of how they have been created. In their core, they are ashamed of their own longing and desire. And I think Jesus would be repulsed by that. I think Jesus was all about people who freely express themselves because they knew that they were just loved and beautifully created exactly as they were. And they knew that darkness was just there to contrast the light. And darkness is a beautiful component of understanding who you are as a human being. And it's there so that you don't get to elevate yourself above other people. And Christians are really, really good at elevating themselves above other people. They believe that they have the key to salvation, and they are not hesitant at all to tell you that you are wrong and that you have lost your way because your life looks like X, Y, and Z when you were just authentically expressing who you are. There's a huge disconnect there between what are we doing in churches if we can't honestly live our lives authentically as a mirror of what is happening internally. If we feel like there is a formula for how you're supposed to show up in the world and you're ashamed of how you want to show up in the world, then what are we doing? I don't think Jesus was that kind of guy. I think he could tell that people were pretending. I think he could intuitively see into their soul. And I think he often helped them bridge the gap between who they were trying to be and who they actually were. And I think he gave them a lot of grace, like, honey, you are just beautiful, just exactly as you are. Acknowledge it, just embrace it. This is who you are. And if you are doing something that you don't prefer to do, which we all do, right? Like sleeping with married men or whatever it is. expressing yourself in some way that causes harm to other people. I think grace is the thing that bridges a gap. Grace is what comes in when the vessel needs repair. That is like the physiological structure of the universe. Grace is like the energy that we withdraw from the universe because we are depleted. And if you want to translate that into how that actually plays out in life, then it's when you make a choice that is not for your highest, that is not an expansive choice, rather, it's a choice made out of fear and scarcity, then that is when you have to have restoration, right? You have to have the accepted, integrated. This is not a part to be ashamed of. It is a part that needs some healing and some like energy infused into it so you can make a better decision that aligns more with who source is, right? Who the creator is, which is always expansive. It's not contracting. It's not resisting. I don't know that I made any sense then, but I just feel like this person of Christ would be disruptive to religious institutions. I don't think they would like him very much. I think he would buck their authority and call them out constantly on their own inner landscape. I think he would bring the conversation back to them over and over again, and people are really uncomfortable with that because when you have moral superiority, you are comfortable in your hierarchical position of pointing out the failure in other people around you, largely excluding yourself from that picture because you have to be elevated in order to have some sort of hierarchy, right? Someone has to be greater than someone else. But Jesus wasn't about that. He was about everybody. We're all human beings, full stop. We're all equally worthy, full stop. There is no hierarchy in love. There's no hierarchy in the universe. It's simply you're playing your part. You have a part to play, and here you are. What are you going to do with this? How are you going to authentically show up instead of worrying what people are believing and thinking about you and pretending to be someone you're not just so you can fit in? And I think he was all about the death of the ego also, which flies in the face of anyone that is performing. And we are in this very fragile world where we are easily offended and people are so reticent to be who they honestly are because the pushback is so great. And because we've all been trained to just worry about what everybody else is doing. And also, we've been trained to worry, to people please, also to stuff yourself into somebody's idea of who you're supposed to be. Because being authentic is really challenging. And it means you have to choose loneliness a lot. You have to choose your own life a lot. And it's choosing hurt and pain and separation and division because people don't like it when you are freely yourself. They feel like you have to stay in some sort of controllable container, that it's not okay for you to bust out of systems of thinking and being and performing. And I just think Jesus was just radical. And I think that we forget that a lot with our high horses and telling people that they're inappropriate and immoral and, expecting people to fit into a template of performance and identity and career paths and educational institutions and the medical field. That's another one also. Like, I don't know that Jesus would go to the doctor. I just feel like source was the answer to all the things for him. And he trusted very deeply in that being the case. He didn't trust in other people. He didn't trust in this world and its monetary things and its tangible provisions. He trusted in source. I believe as a part of creation, I am just by my very nature divinely protected and guided, resourced. I am the divine in human form. What flows in all things flows also in me. And it is the job of the Creator to provide for me. And our modern day society does not function that way. It just doesn't. And we actually don't like people. We don't trust people that live that way. In fact, someone told me the other day that living that way was dumb. And I was like, well, that's a really interesting perspective, because what are we doing then? We say one thing with our mouth, but we live a totally different way. We live as if we're not going to be provided for, as if these things that we have created with our hands, these careers and marriages and family units and ideologies and all these institutions, we live as though those things are far more important than just functioning as a whole human being who is here to spread light, who is here to help us remember who we are. Yep, that was a lesson for me too. I needed to hear all of that. And I'm going to be thinking more about that. And I hope you do too. And I hope that we don't forget who the fuck we are. And I hope that we are always curious, taking apart ideas that we have believed our whole lives and being like, I mean, literally, what would Jesus do? Would he take this job that he hated because it paid more? I don't think so. Would he stay married to a woman that dimmed his light? I don't think so. Would he sit at home and watch TV after he went to his 8-to-5 job? I don't think so. Maybe sometimes. Would he just consume, go to work, save up, feed his family, go on vacations, come home, watch TV, go to bed, work out at the gym? I don't think so. I think he was radical. I think he was available. I think he was accessible. I think he was interruptible. I think he lived on the fly. I think his time management was likely very frustrating for people who had lived by a schedule. I think going on a holiday with him was probably really irritating to people who have a plan. I think he was the kind of guy that wandered off by himself and forgot what time it was and didn't come home for dinner. And he sat in a bar and had too many drinks with someone who was trying to make sense of the pain that they've experienced in their life. I think he probably welcomed visitors at his house at all hours of the night. I think people that lived with him would probably be very irritated by his unpredictability. I think he had no attachment to anybody's idea of how he was supposed to show up in the world. I think he didn't give a shit what people thought about him, what institutions thought about him. I don't think that he was manufacturing his public persona. I don't think he was a creator or an influencer that spent time thinking about his branding. I don't think that he planned what he had to say. I think he was unhinged, unfiltered, and disruptive, simply because he was fully himself and fully connected to the source of all things. And he was deeply unfuckwithable and uncontrollable. And our society does not like people like that. Food for thought. Y'all are the best. Don't forget who the fuck you are. If you like the podcast, rate and review it, please. You're the best. Bye.